We're live. I'll move with you. Hello, everybody. We are here in Journal Club today. Thank you for logging in and getting on here. Lunch is sandwich and salad, healthy. And I'm Dr. Natalia Jaimes, and this is Dr. Rubina Ahmad, and she is a PGY2, soon to be PGY3, Pediatric Resident, who's going to talk today about burnout, an article that she's going to very clearly review. Oh, third year chief too. Dr. Casar is informing us. Okay, so welcome, and we're going to start. Oh, thank you. 2000. Okay, so my title is called Feel the Burn. I don't want you to feel the burn, but some people do. So throughout this presentation, you're going to see pictures of residency with other people. This was my intern year right before ITE exams, so you'll see some familiar faces. I have no relevant relationships, affiliations with any entity or producing, marketing, reselling, or distributing healthcare goods, so I have no disclosures. Alrighty. So I'm actually doing a qualitative research instead of the more randomized controlled studies that we do, just to be more informative. So you're going to understand the study design, most likely to yield valid information about quality questions using the PICO-TT format. I'm going to praise the article and understand the uses and limitations of the quality research and surveys. And I'm going to distinguish important factors about surveys and discuss the internal validity and qualitative research. I'm also going to discuss the external validity, but you'll see it as more relevance, credibility, instead of me actually stating them. Okay, so the question formatting population, I'm actually going to be talking about pediatric resident physicians. The issue is resident burnout. And I don't have a C, there's nothing to compare to because we just only talked about pediatric residents. As far as outcomes, there's self-reported patient care attitude and behaviors that were surveyed. And the type of question, this is a qualitative research, and it's a cross-sectional study, but it's only one point in time. Okay, so as far as the study design, this is a secondary data analysis. There's 486 pediatric residents in the 11 New England Pediatric Residency Consortium. Actually, can I pause this real quick? Because I'm going to keep blurring. Is that okay? Sorry, this is so inappropriate, but sorry. I'm going to take out my Invisalign, yeah. This is going to get worse. All right, that's better. So they were recruited through an email, and there was an embedded link in that email that was SurveyMonkey in April of 2013. So participation was elective. The responses were completely anonymous, and the incentive was they had a chance of like a lottery to win one of 5 $200 gift certificates. So pediatric residents were categorical only. They were not allowed to be med-peds or peds neuro, and then also they had to approve the study. They were approved by the Institutional Review Board of Boston University, as well as the New England region of the Association of Pediatric Program Directors. We kind of received a survey like this, and I'll talk about that much later, okay? But obviously it is important to know that this was approved because in regards to ethics and human participants, we need to make sure that there's no harm or and it's completely anonymous and confidential, okay? So the demographics. So they broke up the demographics between age, sex, race, ethnicity, and then also for the residency information, the training year the person was in, how big the program was, and the location of the program. Obviously the program location is more in the New England region, okay? The average number of work hours, the current rotation schedule the person was on during their training when they took that survey, the total hours of sleep that they had in the past week, and the rating of sleep or perceived sleep deprivation that they had. And so that's going to be an important factor. Other questions include the relationship status, the living arrangements, how many children they may have, and then distance from their closest family member, as well as annual income and any debt burden that they may have. So the measures, it was a validated two single-item measure. It was adapted by the, forgive me for the pronunciation, Maslow's Burnout Inventory. I tried to get a sample of this. The manual cost $50, so I didn't get it eventually, sorry. It's emotional exhaustion. They would define it as, I feel burned out from my work. Depersonalization would be, I've become more callous toward people since I took this job. Answers were on a 7-point Likert scale ranging from never to every day. And I'm going to go ahead and show you. So the Likert scale can be sometimes 5-point or 7-point. And this one was 7-point, so it was more strongly agree to strongly disagree. Okay, just so you have an idea what a Likert scale is. But burnout was really classified if it was weekly or more, meaning like weekly or every day. Okay, just so you know that as well. Other measures were patient care attitudes and behaviors, and that was assessed by the 7 questions from Shana Phelps and their colleagues. So I made treatment medication errors that were not due to lack of knowledge or experience. I paid little attention to social, personal impact of illness on the patient. And then there was an area where it was rate how frequently you find yourself exhibiting the following over the past year. Time constraints, feeling rushed, need to leave the hospital early, and things like of that nature. So as you can see, patient care attitudes and behavior were considered suboptimal if they were reported monthly or weekly in frequency, okay? So that's kind of different from the weekly and everyday previous to now monthly and weekly here. The statistical analysis was the chi-squared test evaluated association between burnout and reported patient attitude and behavior. The logistic regression analysis controlling for age, sex, ethnicity, and then the association. Power, of course, less than 0.05 was considered statistically significant in this study. So throughout this, you're going to see pictures of the residents, like I said. So this is from Monday Clinic last year. We actually went to the attending's house to ride horses and ATVs. Dr. Lance's house, and Dr. Blackwood was the other preceptor on for our clinic.
Did you wear a helmet?
Yes, I did wear a helmet. I did.
We're not pediatric patients.
I did wear a helmet, but the horse was like literally one step at a time. I did. Thank you. Thank you for caring. As far as the results, there was a total of 258 participants, which was a 53 response rate. That's a pretty good response rate. The demographics include mean age was 29.4, plus or minus 2.3 standard deviations for years. Predominantly female, 78.9%, non-Hispanic, 96.5%, and then white, 82.7%. Married or in a significant relationship was 79.3%, and without children, 82%. So basically, I was talking with Dr. Jaimes, and greater than 30% is a good response for surveys. But of course, remember, this is in the New England region, okay? Alrighty, so we have the PGY.
I have a question.
Sure.
It was 78% female. How does that compare nationally for PEDS programs? I think it's like
good question. I'm not sure, though. I didn't compare it nationally.
I can't tell you the exact statistic. I mean, it is predominantly female PEDS, but I don't think it's 78% female. So I think the sample is probably not completely representative of pediatric programs.
I looked up last year. It's around 70.
It's still a little higher.
Neither was less. Gender parity.
Alrighty. So as far as the PGY distribution, it was evenly actually. PGY 1s were 35.4%, PGY 2s were 33.5%, and PGY 3s 31.1% responded. So also the program sizes varying was also equal enough, where you have 51.2% was less than 20 per class, which is kind of like ours, or greater than 20 per class, which was 48.8%. So current rotation schedules, they vary. So it'd be day or evening shift schedule, meaning like if they're inpatients, they're all on days or they're all on nights. Outpatient schedule with weekend responsibilities, meaning you're going to have your cross covers like we usually do, or Q4 schedules, or then call-free schedule without any weekend responsibilities. So even though their current schedule did not cause burnout, like they were on, let's say, outpatient elective, they still reported burnout. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, and the power for that was 0.52. Alrighty. So as other results, residents sleep deprived had significantly higher rates of burnout than residents who reported they didn't feel sleep deprived, and that was less than 0.001. So that's pretty significant. As far as both perceived sleep deprivation and burnout were associated with poor quality of patient care, but there was no significant interaction effect between the two. So that's also important. So we have basically a little table that was also found in there that you can see where the negative self-reported patient care attitudes and behavior. So for discharged patients to make service more manageable, as you can see, that was significant as well. Did not fully discuss treatment options or answer a patient's questions, as well as made treatment or medication errors that were not due to lack of knowledge or inexperience. We discussed that. Did not perform a diagnostic test because of a desire to discharge the patient. Was not applicable, so they didn't have that at all. As far as paid little attention to the social or personal impact of an illness, we also discussed that. And then had little emotional reaction to the death of one of my patients. So that was 0.19%, meaning they're still able to feel emotion, okay? As far as felt guilty from how I treated a patient from a humanitarian standpoint. So that was 0.007, okay? So keep that in mind. So these are all adjusted odds ratio. This is part of the adjusted analysis as versus to the non-adjusted, which is in the paper if you guys had read it. So as you can see, the not applicable, they didn't perform. I discussed that. Uh-oh, don't read that. Did it? Did I go too fast? Nope, I'm right. All right, cool. So burnout is highly prevalent among pediatric residents. That's what we've discovered from this. It's associated with self-reportive negative patient care attitude and behavior, which is the basic title of this. So residency programs, they said that they need to develop interventions. Burnout is a potential negative impact on patient care, and this has to be addressed, and it's an ongoing concern. So I'm going to ask also random questions throughout this just to kind of go ahead and give you a little mental break, if it works. Okay, what percentage of general pediatricians reported burnout in 2011? And then what percentage of general pediatricians reported burnout in 2014? Take a guess.
33.3.
Okay, all right. And what about in 2014? What do you think happened?
34.3.
You think it went down?
20 to 40.
So you think it went up? Okay. And so does Dr. Casal. So they're right. So in 2001, you're very close, 35.3%. And then in 2014, actually increased by 11%. And then this is a different one. This is by the Mayo Clinic. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's different specialties. Of course, you know, you've got your emergency medicines, your surgeries, everything like that. Psychiatry is up here, as well as general pediatrics and subspecialties. Can you guys see that? General pediatrics is right here. So from 35 to 43. I guess I could have used a mouse, but
Why did it go up so much?
maybe all the EEGs they have to read.
That's a big jump in 3 years. Any explanation?
No, I couldn't purchase the article, so I can only get the results. It's the truth. I wasn't. It was from Mayo. Sorry.
What's up with dermatologists to get so burned out?
Right? I don't know. There's a huge jump, though. So, next picture. So we were on inpatient month, intern year, checking Nikita. We all went to go get ice cream. I don't remember the name of the place, though. Hits. It was delicious, so I'd recommend that. Of course. Oh. Okay. Well, I went there and it was nice once upon a time. The ward was appropriately covered while we went, so that there's no concern. So I'm going to start the critical appraisal part, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll get through it. So is the qualitative research relevant? And so my question is it a social rather than a biomedical phenomena? And so this is actually a social phenomena. So really, in order to understand that, like, if you're looking at a watch, are you trying to understand the mechanics of the watch or the nature of the watch working? We're trying to figure out the nature of what's going on with burnout. So that's exactly how to describe it, okay? So it's more subjective feelings.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to say this, but I'm not sure that this really fits the definition of qualitative research, because it, I mean, even though what you're getting at is maybe the spirit of the question that they're asking, if it's survey data that's numbers, I would consider that quantitative research still. Like when I think about qualitative research, I think about interviews and focus groups, and that type of data that has to be analyzed with coding, and so this particular study I would consider quantitative. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So I'll get to it more later, but we'll get to it in the later point, if you don't mind, because there's like a whole slides on it.
Okay.
As far as, so we said social phenomena for that. As far as the relevance, was it theoretical or conceptual? Obviously, it's more of a conceptual understanding, and that's self-explanatory. Are the results credible? And so that was our thing. Can we trust these results? So the participants that were involved was more explicit versus comprehensive, because they were all pediatric residents. So we were just categorizing pediatric residents. We weren't looking at all the other programs. And then these were only categorical, so not med peds, not peds neuro, and this is only the New England region. Like Dr. Kramer said, this isn't the whole U.S., so we don't necessarily know what it's like everywhere else and if it would be different. And the other thing was the survey was only given to residents, but it'd be interesting to see what nursing said or attending, but of course I'll talk about that later as well. So was the research ethics approval obtained? So like I said, it's important that you get to find out the ethical treatment of human research participants because it's fundamental. But so we said that Institutional Review Board of Boston University, as well as the New England region of the Association of Program Directors, approved this. So it reflects also the ability of investigators to approach participants with like respect and sensitivity, to know that it had to be approved by ethics. Like I said, confidential, no harm, so it was okay. As far as was the data collection sufficiently comprehensive and detailed, we do think it was comprehensive for the fact that you had at least 53% respond, and like we said, greater than 30% is pretty good. However, the method of data collection, like the surveys, is suboptimal, okay? So usually sources, and I'll talk about this on my next slide, so sources, you'll have field observation where you'll go and observe them, you'll have interviews, or you'll have document analysis. So surveys are more of the interviewing type. However, you could argue that they should have done one-on-one interviewing, but then they would lose that confidentiality and anonymousness. Okay, and then the other thing was that maybe they didn't have sufficient number of observations to really achieve like an adequate amount of perspective. Okay, so the standard questionnaires, so we were talking about that. They give you preconditioned responses, like did you work too much, did you feel too tired? You know, they're preconditioned, so the way you respond to them might be a little bit different. Instead of saying, I felt this way on this day because of this, or right now I feel this. You know what I mean? Just to be more open interviewing. And it doesn't really allow like a structure, like I said, to relate their own experiences. So open-ended questions really allow respondents to give their own words, right? But the other thing with open-ended, you don't have dialogue. You can't ask them, well, why did that happen? What do you think led to that? So it doesn't really allow for opportunity to probe for more information. So individual interviews versus group interviews, that was useful for evoking personal experiences. So we were talking about this, Dr. Jaimes and I, about like what could be a way that they could have done this differently, doing more individual interviews versus surveys, where it's kind of like confessions at church, where you don't see the person, but you're able to have dialogue with them and understand the burnout. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if we'd be able to do that though.
So just
Sure.
so we go back to what Ava was saying. So we
Sure.
have one slide that talks about Reevaluate.
The different one, yeah.
So it is a quantitative way of measuring a quality work. So many quality research might be about feelings and things that are subjective, and how can we put that into an objective way to count it? This is one example. And then surveys will, you know, do they have never versus everyday frequency, and they might distribute that in a categorical way and say, if it's weekly, we're going to call it positive. Weekly or more frequent is going to be positive, and weekly or less, it's going to be negative. And you put that in a 0 to 1, and it's a variable now that is a yes or not kind of. So you can modify or use these surveys to actually count things that are qualitative. So not necessarily qualitative research or qualitative stuff is only going to be, you know, paragraphs and things. It can also be measured, and this is one way to measure it. And the fact that you have numbers and P's and doesn't make it quantitative. You know, it still is about quality and about, you know, social and about phenomena and about things that are not necessarily, you know, treatments and this versus that you can, you know, you know, guys, what I mean. So it's still a qualitative kind of thing, a phenomena, but we can still put in somehow that we can count and measure and also at the same time do interventions and then measure how that has modified or improved whatever you were counting before, if that has any sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to also talk about...
what would be the downside to open-ended questions?
You wouldn't be able to measure them as much then.
Much harder to grade.
The major downside is that if you ask people to fill out a bunch of boxes with words, your response rate would probably drop.
Right.
You know, with the amount of time it would take to fill it out.
Sure.
Right.
So,
You'd have to you'd also have to standardize and get a few reviewers to review all those responses.
Put them in a category.
I mean, there's software now, there are software systems that will code your qualitative data for you now.
Yeah. In an open-ended question.
And there's software that will code for themes.
Yeah. So in an open-ended question, you'll have answers that have all sort of information, right? And then if they have some keywords or, you know, it will actually, there's some software that can identify that and say this was a yes or this was a no. So that's another way of doing, you know, surveys with people actually say yes and explain. You know, you've seen those when you do like CME evaluations and stuff, you put yes and then explain why or no and explain why, and then that's more that you have to read the whole answer. And then if they would have done something like that, they would have to have some people grading those questions, right? And saying this person is burnout according to whatever this person is saying, and give it, you know, given some sort of a number to be able to quantify it as well. You know, so that's a way. The other way could be the interviewers or the doctors or counselors or psychologists talking to each one of the residents in an anonymous way, not involved with the residency program, going around the country and asking resident by resident in an anonymous interview. But it's difficult because when somebody's looking at your face, it's hard to recognize. I feel like I haven't been treating somebody with all the humanity they deserve, you know? So it's really, it's more challenging for people to be honest about mistakes and things like that in front of somebody else looking at them, you know? So there's another way of doing it, probably much exact, probably much better to have an assessment of, you know, a clinician talking to each one of the residents, but also a lot more expensive, a lot more time, and, you know, so, I mean, there are other ways to have done this that could probably be more exact, but it will make it a lot more difficult, you know.
Okay. So we're going to talk about a few bias. So the survey was chosen to be done at the beginning of April. This was to really avoid, you know, the winter months as well as the start or end of an academic year, okay? And also the respondents who chose to participate may be influenced by a selection bias, whether they were the ones that felt more burnout, that they wanted to say something, you know what I mean? So that's another thing to think about.
But isn't it important to consider, like, seasonality? It
would be interesting to know, but they didn't want it to be a bias in that sense.
Then you're biased again.
Yes. So the thing is, this is a cross-sectional study in one moment in time. So every year they would have to do it, or 3 years from now. Okay. But yes, I get what you mean. The winter months are much more challenging for pediatricians. I get it.
You can do a study where you survey people at different times of the year and assess their level.
Okay. So also credibility. So was the data analyzed appropriately and the findings corroborated with adequately? So each resident received the same survey. Each survey had controls like the demographics, whether they were certain race or if they're male or female. The other thing was that the survey resulted the same as it was the adjusted analysis. So they all had same things. So talking about the extensive data analysis for this, basically, there's three different types. So there's triangulation, there's redundancy, and there's saturation. So triangulation is seeking and using multiple sources of evidence to corroborate your key findings. The survey really only had residents. They didn't have, like I said, nurses or attending, so you can't really have triangulation in this. Also, redundancy, point an analysis at which the new data fails to generate new themes and new information, so it becomes redundant. So this was only one moment in time. They didn't have that redundancy. It didn't have saturation either, so there wasn't an area where all the analysis seemed to be organized. More pictures. All right, this is on inpatient. Best part about pediatrics, Cinderella comes to visit. And I also want to point out that there were 3 maths on service. So math. Okay.
Hey, Ruby, can you go back to that last one?
Sure.
Those terms of redundancy and saturation, I don't know if they really apply to this particular study. Like, those are terms
they don't apply. They're just a part of the data analysis if you were to.
If you were doing qualitative research, like that would be what you'd be trying to see when you're.
I just wanted to point out that we didn't have triangulation because it was just residents, and we didn't have redundancy or saturation. But this is how you would say if you were analyzing the data.
Do those terms make sense to you guys about what it means?
Okay. So moving onwards. So what are the results? So results, we said 39% of pediatric resident respondents endorsed burnout. Okay, they had greater odds of reporting suboptimal patient care attitudes, like we said, ignoring the social and personal impact of an illness of a patient, also making treatment or medication errors, feeling guilty how a patient was treated afterwards, discharging patients off the service to make it more manageable, and then not fully discussing treatment options or answering questions. So that's concerning. And we'll go more into that. So were the results, how will these results help me care for my patient? So does this study offer helpful theory? Yes, so the study is relevant and it's very clear that it says it's an ongoing concern, resident burnout is occurring. The categories are consistent with recognizing concerns for patient care, communication, and really continuing education. The findings are also fertile because in that, like, they point out potential solutions. So they don't just say, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, this is what we can do. And so that's mostly the main part of my presentation is what Carilion has to offer and what we can do in the future. Okay. So does this study help me understand social interactions in clinical care? Yes. Like we said, interactions, relationships, experiences, that's what it helps us with, and also provides us insight for this ongoing concern. So burnout associated with self-reported negative patient care and attitudes, behaviors, and we're going to talk about some things to do for resident wellness, okay? So this is a great question too. What percentage of residents experience major depressive disorder during training? 25%. All right, any more? 15, 25, 40? Okay, 35. 28%. Geez, Kramer, did you read my article or do research on it? You're hitting them all. So 28% of residents experience major depressive episodes. Compared to U.S. general population, it's only 7 to 8%, like around their age group, just to give you an idea. So it's like 4 times the risk, or 3, however you look at it. So I also talked about, I didn't want to talk about it in too much depth, but just want to tell you about a few other studies that happened. So I'm not going to pronounce his name, but he had 123 residents among 3 pediatric residencies, and that showed that 74% of burnout was prevalent, but this didn't correlate to an increased rate of medical errors. Okay. Another one, Olson, he got first-year pediatric and med-peds residents, totaling 45, and 40% endorsed burnout, and the criteria was to be greater than 1 for one of their items, okay? Another study done, okay, not going to pronounce that name either. Burnout increased from 17% from the start of their residency to about 46% mid-intern year. So that was pretty interesting for me as well. The other thing was Milstein, 1 residency program, 33 residents, 66 endorsed burnout. Okay, so these are other studies that were done, but no studies were done more like this one. More pictures. This is from graduation. Yay. Okay. So I'm going to talk a lot about burnout and what we can do. So this is probably the half point. Alrighty, so burnout. So burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion, and it's caused by excessive and prolonged stress, okay? That's kind of known. So I had a little bit of confusion about what stressed out meant and burnout. So I went ahead and got this table to really understand it. So if you're stressed out, that means you're overengaged, your emotions are overreactive, you're producing urgency and hyperactivity. You've got lots of energy, though. It can lead to anxiety disorders, and primary damage is more physical on your body. But it may kill you prematurely, so no worries. As far as burnout, it's categorized by disengagement. So their emotions are blunted, they feel helpless, they feel hopeless, they have loss of motivation, loss of ideals and hope, hopeless, same thing, leads to detachment and depression, and primary damage is more emotional, which may make their life seem not worth living anymore, okay? So signs of burnout. How can you tell someone's burnout? So this is something helpful to all of us to make sure that none of our other co-residents feel this. Physical signs, feeling tired, drained most of the time, lowered immunity, someone who's always sick, frequent headaches, back pain, muscle aches, and really a change in appetite or sleeping behaviors, okay? Emotional signs, sense of failure, self-doubt, feeling helpless, trapped, defeated, okay? Feeling really detached, feeling alone in the world, loss of motivation. So not really, like I said, disengaged, not wanting to do things. Increasingly cynical and negative outlook, decreased satisfaction, and decreased sense of accomplishment, okay? So behavioral signs that you'll notice, they start withdrawing from responsibilities, isolating themselves, procrastinating as much as they possibly can, using maybe food, alcohol, or drugs, really to cope with all their issues, taking their frustration out on others, probably whoever's closest to them, skipping work, coming in late, leaving early, okay? So what are the causes of burnout? So there's different categories, but work-related wise, feeling little or no control over work, okay? I think that's a big thing for residents because you're still training, so you don't have complete control yet. Lack of recognition or reward for good work. Sometimes it may feel like you're only getting negative feedback. So positive feedback is also important. Unclear, overlying, demanding job expectations, doing work that's monotonous or unchallenging, working in a chaotic or high-pressure environment. Lifestyle causes that may cause this, working too much, not socializing or relaxing enough, lack of close, supportive relationships, maybe taking on too many responsibilities at once, or not getting enough sleep. So what personality traits contribute to all of this? Perfectionist, pessimistic outlook, the need to be in control, and high-achieving type A personalities.
Personality traits that got you here?
Hey, I'm going to get there. Wait for it. It's the next slide. Okay, consequences, high levels of job dissatisfaction, failed relationships, depression, alcohol abuse, and suicidal ideations are the consequences of burnout, okay? So, it wasn't the next slide. Maybe in 5 more. So managing stress. Stop accepting new responsibilities, okay? If you're overloaded, you need to take a break, okay? Cut back on prior commitments that you have because you don't want to be slacking on them, okay? Deal with urgent, important things first. And as much as you can, get support from your friends and family, okay? My next thing is building resilience. So make connections, okay? maybe making connection to other programs or nurses or people in your community. Avoid seeing crisis as the insurmountable problem. You can get through it. You know, you always have. Accept change is a part of living. So you're changing from first year to second year. It's inevitable. It's just a change that you'll get through, and it's only 1 year. Move towards your goals, okay? Your goal is to finish pediatric residency. Maybe it's to do fellowship, or maybe it's to become a hospitalist or outpatient physician. So those are your goals. Take decisive actions towards those goals. Look for opportunities of self-discovery. Maybe try to find something new, like, hey, I'm not really good at painting, but maybe I'll go to that art museum and take a few classes on evening times, or I'll do yoga at the rec center. And then also nurture a positive view of yourself. So reevaluate your priorities. That's another thing. Set boundaries, okay? Make sure that you maybe try to break away from technology as hard as it may be, okay? Like I said, try something new, whether it's going to the art museum or doing yoga. Find some time to relax, to take a deep breath, to get away from things. And then sleep. Sleep is really important. You got to get sleep as much as you can. So for setting your boundaries, like I said, learn how to say no. Don't overextend yourself, okay? When you're breaking away from technology, it's just a brief disconnect. It's not forever, so it's okay. And that's harder for me because I'm tech savvy. So try something new. This is how you will nourish your creative side. Relaxing, meditations, deep breathing exercises. Sometimes your Apple Watch will tell you to take a deep breath. You shouldn't ignore it over and over again. I know. Okay, then I'll have to take my break from technology. You're right. Getting a good night's sleep. When you're feeling tired or really, that can just exacerbate your burnout. Okay, healthy diet. So minimize sugar and refined carbs. Reduce caffeine. Okay, I don't take caffeine, but I'm sure it causes anxiety. More omega-3 fatty acids. Avoid nicotine. I can safely say that I know no one in our program smokes. So continue to avoid that. Drink alcohol in moderation, okay? The sugars and the carbs, they really just lead to a crash in mood and energy. So you're going high, and then you're going to go right down, okay? Reduce caffeine, as I said, it can adversely affect your mood. Like nicotine, it's the high levels of anxiety, it just makes it much worse. The omega-3 actually boosts your mood for your brain and your heart, so it's great. And alcohol just temporarily reduces your stress, but it leads to excess anxiety. So exercise. This one's for you, Dr. Hymas. Make it a priority. Aim to exercise 30 minutes a day. I was going to avoid an exercise one, but I put it in just for Dr. Hymas because I didn't want to listen to it. Rhythmic exercises, moving both your arms and your legs, like walking, running, swimming, dancing. Like just one thing doesn't really work. Focus on your body and how it feels to move. All right. This is for you, Dr. Whalen. Value traits in pediatrics. So your compassion, your perfectionism, your altruism, those are all traits that are valued as a pediatrician, okay? But the sad part is it also predisposes you to burnout, okay? But just keep that in mind. That's what got you here, all those great characteristics. Yay, more pictures from graduation. My face is cut off. It's okay. Kara looks scared. Alrighty, so I looked up what other programs are doing for resident wellness and their curriculums to try to get an idea of what we can do for ours in the future. We've got a lot already, and I'm going to list those, but I want to know what everyone else is doing. So Stanford University sadly had a general surgeon resident who committed suicide shortly after he completed his residency. And so they started their curriculum where they had 4 domains of well-being. So it was professional, physical, psychological, and social was its distribution. Really, the activities and structured resources gave those residents a work-life balance. So they had a resident mentorship and leadership training. I thought that was great. They'd have quarterly meetings with an intern and a senior that would meet. It was private, it was formal, and it was pretty, confidential. But it was enough to where that they could feel like they had somebody they could lean on. They did a rope course to focus on leadership, bonding, and support, just a group exercise. Sailing, just to kind of maybe boost morale, I don't know what happened there. boost team morale. It doesn't look like that on mine. Hosting social gatherings. So they had faculty coming in and having events as well as their own, okay? And they felt like the faculty being there allowed for meaningful relationship. So UNC, University of North Carolina, so they had something kind of similar to ours right now. They had meals at conferences, freedom pay, where you would get like, you would get money for the amount of hours you worked, and then exercise. They all had a gym membership. They could do yoga or Zumba at work in the lobby, and then that would be 3 times a week. They had mindful Mondays. They didn't give me a description of that, but I'm guessing maybe it was like mindful meditation or something. Every Monday they did this. Great, see, so that's wonderful. So maybe like on a clinic day, 5 minutes of your 20 minutes, you could do like a mindful day. So that was something else that I'll talk about. Formal events, so they had welcome picnics, they had, you know, Winterfest, which would be like a Christmas party, they had full weekend retreats, so all kind of the same things that we already have going on. So Yale, what is Yale doing? So they did a pedometer challenge on wards, so you're walking on wards, you're going up and down, that's pretty good. I know Dr. Casaldi likes that. So maybe doing that to keep more active, and also maybe outside they can continue to keep active. Weekly yoga, kind of what UNC did. Biking, hiking, running groups, just maybe an activity outdoors group. And then medicine and art events, so they would have like maybe an event at the museum or maybe do a paint night or, you know, just something of an event. Scheduling intern wellness visits at the EAP, I was like, that's a pretty good idea, making sure the interns know where the EAP is and make sure that they have a mandatory scheduled visit with them so that they can talk about any issues that they maybe have going on, so prophylactically we can make sure they don't have burnout. End of block parties, we were working on that, maybe next year we'll be strong about it. And then resident appreciation day, kind of on Doctor's Day, we get appreciated by the nursing staff in clinic, so kind of just like a resident appreciation day. More pictures, R2D2. Is that R2D2? Okay, good. So break question, what % of interns had suicidal thoughts? 32, okay. 18? Good, all right.
I'm making up for my ridiculous.
So 23% of interns had suicidal thoughts. 50% of these stated that suicidal ideations decrease after 4 sessions of webbed CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know whether or not that helped, which I hope it did, or that they were tired of taking it. Yes?
What's the rate of the normal population?
For as far as all the residents?
Yeah, and they're just in the whole world. How many people think about this?
I didn't see that in the study, or I didn't find that. 7 to 8% for that age year of residents. We're interns. Yeah. So 7, 8. Yeah, that's a good one.
So a study 2008-2009 said 3.7% of the adult U.S. population.
So, Carilion Children, they offer us resident wellness, and I'm going to talk about what they offer us. I am sure I left out some. I tried my best to find everything that I possibly could, but there continues to be more that I keep finding. So food, we get meals at Journal Club like today. We get meals at Grand Rounds. Thank you so much for making that for us. And then we get monthly food allowance, and you can push that off to your inpatient months, which pretty much means you don't pay for anything during your inpatient month. Exercise, we have gym membership. My intern year, I was so strong about going to the gym, and I hopefully will my 3rd year.
And you have the Greenway.
Yes, the Greenway, it's beautiful. So you can run outside, you can hike up all the hills, or mountains, and yeah. So formal events. We have the Welcome Resident Pool Party at Dr. Reynolds, and we've had another welcome party, which is going to be further out on the 28th. And we have Christmas parties at Dr. Reynolds. We have retreats, the retreat that we had back in August, September time. So that's wonderful. We go out to a lake house. Everyone has pretty much a room for themselves. And then we had a
Like pretty much always have had some wellness, like specific programming in our retreats. Like we had a mindfulness session a couple couple years ago. We did the confessions last year, so we usually do some sort of specifically wellness-focused thing.
Right. And so also we had the semi-annual wellness retreat, which we did, and we did some yoga, and that was really nice and relaxing. So what other things do we have? We identifying burnout, so you meet with the program director twice a year. Financial planning, there was a seminar that was done. I'm not sure if anybody got some emails for it, but there was a seminar for that. There's also support groups. I didn't know about this. It's called Trust Team. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but basically if you were involved in maybe the death of a patient and you just want to talk to somebody because maybe you had a hard time about it because you're human, you can go to Trust Team. You can even call them on the phone, and I'll talk more about that, okay? And then smoking, but no one does, so that's great.
You're going to talk about EAP?
Yeah, we also have. We'll get there.
Okay.
There's like 5 more slides and stuff, I promise. So we did a confidential survey about burnout and resilience. If you guys remember, it wasn't exactly on this, but it was kind of similar to this. If you remember taking that, that's pretty much how this survey was done. And as you know, Dr. Violet sent it out to us this spring, so I think we got around March, April time too. I'm not going to open it up, but
just it's a multi-center study, and I think they were supposed to share our program data with us on the study.
Very nice. So we can compare it to ours and nationally. So the other thing was career burnout assessment. So there's a link here. I don't know if I want to click on it, but I will. And so basically, how much time this takes is only 5 minutes. And basically, you can just see how you are. And it's just an assessment to see if you're burnt out. And this is on the Carilion website. So you can just click the start and take it and see how you're doing, okay? I promise. I did some good research on this. I did. Okay, so that's part of it. And then going back, oh, how do I do this? I know this button. Okay, there we go. So the next thing is that there is a website just for resident wellness. Okay, like I said, you have a self-assessment on there. It talks about all the fitness, diet, and finances. So I have that pulled up. Can you see it good? Yeah. So you've got your self-assessment, so general health, career burnout, the one that I just took you to, stress anxiety assessment, work-life balance assessment. Your fitness, so these are different fitness assessments. You can go outside, Roanoke, land adventures, water adventures, other things to do. So they've got a lot of categories. I didn't even know this website existed, and I think it's wonderful. You have everything you need on one page, okay? Other diet things, nutrition assessment, ask the dietitian, healthy recipes. We also get these weekly newsletters that give us recipes. I'm not a person that cooks, but one day I'm saving them all and forwarding them to my personal email, and one day I will. Okay. As far as finances, Wells Fargo for any issues there. And I'll talk more about the Employee Assistance Program, but also the Trust Team. You can find information here, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. But this is a great website and a great tool to just kind of get some more information, okay? All right, we're back over here. So Trust Team, this is, like I said, a support group for staff who are impacted by adverse events of patients, from patients, and this is what's called a second victim, okay? They provide you compassionate peer-to-peer support. So 7 Safe now is like, you can use 7 Trust, T-R-S-T, and just dial it from an internal phone here and talk to them, okay? Employee Assistance Program. So I'm going to go on about this, and I showed you where the link was that you can find it on the Resident Wellness site, but it's confidential counseling service provided. And this was what I was saying that the intern should do mandatory their intern year, just to really set a baseline and prophylactically be seen. Individuals identify and resolve personal issues, so relationship problems, emotional problems, financial issues. You just came out of med school, right? If they're in any other legal troubles, like whether it's for visa issues or whatnot, they take care of that. I know one of my friends in internal medicine had that. Vocational stresses and conflicts or any drug or alcohol issues they may have. So it really helps you identify some practical solutions. And these are the numbers for them, okay? But like I said, I showed you the link on the Carilion website, and they're really available 24/7, okay? So this is when I say EAP, or you hear anybody say EAP, it's Employee Assistance Program.
Is that all you're going to say about EAP?
Yes.
Can I add one?
Sure.
So there's lots and lots of residents and faculty that are using services.
Okay, so last but not least slide, recommendations that I have. So block parties, we can get better about them next year, maybe doing like a social committee, one resident from every year getting together, because everyone's got different schedules. And so 2 people may not be able to do it, you know. So having a resident every year, maybe making a block party, designated time, to just hanging out, everybody, maybe faculty can also come too. I think this is really, really big thing, having an inter-senior mentorship with quarterly meetings. I think that would be beneficial. I know that if I was an intern, I might have liked that, but I would definitely, as a senior, want to maybe be picked with an intern to go ahead and mentor them and make sure that I can keep in tact and know that they aren't feeling burnt out. Getting maybe a spousal parental support group. So maybe someone, if you know you don't have your family to reach out to, maybe you can use somebody else's spouse and just talk to them. I'm seeing like somebody else's wife or something, you know, like I was thinking of like Kenzie when I was talking about this. I was like, you know, I could easily talk to her because she's non-medical, okay? Intern meeting with the EAP, like Dr. Reynolds said, it's not, you can't require them to go, but maybe you could schedule it for them and recommend that they go. And just get maybe a baseline to see, make sure and prep them if they don't have any issues. Identifying burnout. So program director meets with them, advisors meet with them, but also if we have mentors to meet with them, then that's at least, what, like 8 times to make sure throughout the year that someone's okay. So and I'm saying this just to make sure that no one gets to that point where they feel like they're hopeless. Financial planning, maybe have a dedicated didactics. I know at the retreat they talked to us about this, but maybe just a dedicated didactic, maybe towards the end of the year or the beginning of the year, so that way everyone's informed and needs help, or maybe free help with income taxes, something like that. I'm not sure. But otherwise, maybe, like we have an interview kickoff party, and so I think that maybe trying to like get our, I guess, how do I say this? Being more involved with each other, because I feel like, especially with our hectic schedules, they don't get a time to meet us until late on in the year when we eventually work with them. And so maybe just trying as much as we can, getting really close to the intern group. But that's what the resident welcome party is for, okay? So any questions? Like I said, it was a lot about education information. Hey.
You may have already presented this data, but in your study or in your general research for this topic, did you find that any of the demographic factors are protected from burnout or detrimental? So if you're getting married this summer, are you, after getting married, better off or worse off?
So if I were to have children, then I think, no, was it children? I think it was saying, let me go back to that.
Your married people didn't have any more or less burnout than married people.
Because there was such a high percentage of marriage or significant relationships in this category. It was like 70-something%.
Like 18% was kids.
Yeah, so 18%. So if I had kids, then I wouldn't feel as burnout. Maybe that's the thing? Sure.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't think this study helped us with that, because they only have few people married, and they only have few people with kids. So having such a little percentage of the people they investigated with those characteristics wouldn't let them really pick that up, you know. So, but there have been other studies that say when you're a male and you're married, you are better off than when you're a female and you're married. Yeah. So for females, having a husband might not be so good, and for males, having a wife actually might be better. Right. And if you have kids and you're a woman, you are more stressed and more susceptible to get burnout than if you are a male and have kids. So it's a little bit tougher for us females in other studies that are not this study. Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, guys. Alrighty.